Hey y'all, what's good? Welcome to Wake Up with Love. I am so glad you chose to start your morning with us today. This is a sacred space cultivated with spirit, heart, and purpose, designed to support you in becoming the greatest expression of the massive blessing you came into this world to be. So let's get into it.
Hey y'all, what is good on this beautiful Tuesday morning? Nice and rainy and shiny up in these mountains. Such a beautiful, loving spirit and hope out to the people that are being affected by the storm today. And yeah, just know that you're in our spirits. And in that, let's start off the way we do with a prayer. As we know, in this special place, when we pray in, we create a buffer, a container that holds this conversation in a special place. Because our desire is to build connection. Our desire is to build intention, to build love, to build unity, to build harmony, unity without uniformity, to invite you into a conversation that gives each one of us the opportunity to remember how amazing we are, how much we matter, and maybe get a tool or two to help us move into our world and be more effective, being the massive blessing we were born to be. So, Great Spirit, please be with us in this short 15 minutes. Hold the covering over this conversation. May each one of us come and take a deep breath and just lean in and just listen to see if there's something that the spirit of Betsy and I coming through us that's in service of you may have something for you today. And maybe you might be inspired to call in and give us something today. So that's the beautiful message. Hold that space. And all the names you've been praised, being praised, and will be praised, we celebrate you today. Amen. Aho. Some more to be. So, Betsy in here this morning to talk about something really powerful. This is something that I learned about 11 years ago, and it had such a profound effect in my life, and I've been preaching it ever since. And it goes in complete alignment with the knowing, the wisdom saying, the truth shall set you free. The truth shall set you free. And since liberation is the cause here, to the freest and most beautiful expression of you, we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about the what so. And we should have a fun conversation because Betsy and I have had many times to explore the idea of what so.
I don't know. Maybe this conversation will be fun. I will just say I do not personally find the what so conversations to be particularly fun. I'll just say that. But I think that's also because we have an aversion to being uncomfortable or pushing the limits, or it's actually interesting because what's coming up for me is that the difference between feeling called out and feeling called in are just in how you receive it.
I love that.
Yeah, because you can hear anything as a call in, a call up to be better. But if you hear somebody as calling you out and taking it personally in judgment and blame and all of that, then the cascade of emotion that typically follows involves resistance instead of okay, how could I be better? And thank you for pointing out the ways in which I may have unconsciously been acting out of alignment with my highest self, you know?
I love the call in or the call out, the energy, and even knowing when the people are speaking with us to be able to discern, like, what is the motive behind it. And we've recently been realizing that a lot of people that are faithful, they have a particular faith in which they proclaim is the one. And when in the presence of such people, there's always been like a rub in me, as I love the fact that I am able to sit and actually celebrate everyone's faith. If you found a well that you can go to for water that fills your spirit and brings you more in alignment with the truth of your being, oh my God, I celebrate that with you. I want to know more about that, how it works. And one thing I've learned is that when it comes to spiritual truths, you have to be home to get the call. It's not like these cell phones where you can be out busy in the world shopping and doing laundry and then it hits you. Maybe sometimes it does. But for me, I have to go home, get that rotary dial. The cord only goes so far, and I have to hear it ring Betsy was laughing about that, right? About waiting by the phone when you had that important phone call that was coming in.
Oh my gosh! Well, I just remember it, and I was saying because we're always connected now. Like people can always reach us, But it used to be when you were out, and no one was worrying about where you were, what you were. It was like you were out, and you'd be home when you got home. No one expected to be able to reach you, and if you were waiting for that important phone call, you would be sitting and waiting and staring at the phone, and it felt like forever, or waiting for it because you knew if you missed that phone call, you couldn't always necessarily easily call somebody back because they didn't have a cell phone either if they weren't right by their landline when you call back. So you had to be there to answer the call.
So I love that. The call is coming for you. There's a calling on your life. There's a calling in your spirit. We were watching the movie Moana yesterday, and the grandmother's looking at her, and she's like, nothing can silence the quiet voice inside of you, reminding you who you are, what you are, what you're capable of. Oh,
gets me every time.
My goodness, that's it. The elders in our life.
We all need that, Grandma.
So yeah, let's get into it. The what so, people. I love the what so conversation because the what so sets us free. It sets me free. The moment I have the courage and the audacity to tell the truth on myself, to allow my humanity to be present with another person, to take responsibility, the ability to respond, to own it, and to be like, wow, that was not what I am capable of. That was a lower vibration than my ideal, yet it was me. I did that. And there's going to be an impact of that. And now that I know I did that and I'm communicating it, now I am released from anything that I have to do with that. I am complete. And now there may be a journey between me and you being complete because of the impact I had on you. But if you're in your humanity and I'm in my humanity, these are break-free moments. We don't get tripped up when we hurt one another and for being responsible, because there's nothing more sweet for me than being in the presence of someone that's being responsible with their heart and my heart, that they're watching themselves closely to see when they're acting out of turn and calling it so that, we know we're safe in each other's presence. It's such a richness, and it's rare, but I think this conversation we're having is going to be one tool that if you're inspired by, you can bring it into your relationship. And we'll actually tell you in a moment exactly how we've used it.
Well, I'll just say, Love, I think that you're a unique person in a lot of ways. Love and I joke because I call him a unicorn. But I don't know many people who are willing to just say anything the way that you do. And you've made many people uncomfortable by just speaking what's so and speaking the truth, whether about yourself or them or whatever.
The situation.
Just the situation, whatever it is. And it's interesting because I think we're seeing the importance of the what so on every level right now. Like, I think that's part of what is happening on the collective right now. We've said that, right? It's like, okay, we opened up some massive wounds in the last, year and a half of stuff that people are like, oh my gosh, how is this the reality? And how it's like, this has been here. It's just been under the surface and nobody's been talking about it or people have been looking away. And it's like, if you're going to clean out a wound, you got to open it up. You got to get the gunk out, got to see what's actually going on in there. And we're dealing with some of that on a collective level. But I think also on interpersonal levels, I think there are some parts of the country that maybe are more honest than others. Maybe not, but they're more direct, let's say, than others. But at least for me, I was raised in the Midwest. We're taught, you don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings. It's a cultural thing. Don't air your dirty laundry. Basically don't say what's so,
Yeah.
Don't speak what's so. If it could look bad, feel bad, any of those things. And it's like, well, you've really taught me. And I'm still learning. I'm on a curve with this, but I'm better. I'm much better than I used to be. And it's a spiritual practice for me now almost to feel it as a calling in instead of a calling out. And because every time the truth happens or someone's like, hey, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do better, be better. But it's also an opportunity to actually have real connection with each other.
Yeah.
You know? Because if we're just all walking around keeping our truths on the down low because we're afraid of how they're going to be received, or if they're bad or wrong, or if we're supposed to have those truths or not, then nothing is really authentic. I just got a lot there.
Oh, and I'm glad for it, because, you know, there's always going to be multiple perspectives, and as people call in, we're going to get even more perspective. You know, people, so they call me the unicorn, folks.
By they, he means me.
Yeah, well, the people that enjoy me call me the unicorn. The people that don't just say, I'd like a little distance between you and your what.
Can you tone that down, please?
Can you tone your what's so down, please?
Yes,
I'm enjoying the pretense that we're living in right now, even though we're swimming in very uncomfortable waters.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just stay there. And now that I have the freedom of the what's so, I want to be free. I don't want to be bogged down by anything. But yeah, I'm going to share with you really briefly. You know, folks, I was 6 years old when I knew that I wanted to love the world, and I wanted the world to love me. I'm 43 years old right now, and I'm just uncovering the fact that silently in the back of me, I've had the belief that nobody wants what I came to bring. And slowly I have been manifesting that. Because what we think about, what we resist persists,
mm-hmm.
and what we imagine becomes our reality. And so some part of me in the background has been just saying, is anyone ever going to want the love that I came to bring?
Mm.
And so that's a deep thought. And so at 6 years old, thinking that, I kind of turned off, and I became the opposite of love. I became manipulative. I became untrustworthy. I became dishonest. I became forceful and power over, and many of the misunderstandings, because that's the only thing that I was seeing in my community. I was raised in the Bronx, but I think that's, you know, pretty universal in Western culture. And so my loving, beautiful child has done some really ugly things. And so it came to a point in my adult years where I could either swim in them and allow them to define my future, or realize that I was in the misunderstanding. That the young boy in me, if he would have had a chance to choose love, he would have chosen the hell out of love. He would have given everything he had. He would have shared. He would have created deep connection and rich connection. He would have felt deeply loved and made everyone around him feel deeply loved. In the absence of knowing how to do that, I chose other courses. And so that's the beginning of it. The second piece of it is I was enlivened to know that we are all children of the divine. We are all beautiful at heart. I've had the blessing of watching 2 babies born into this world. Like, it's a miracle. We are miracles. We are miracles in matter.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. We are miracles in matter, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And we all come divinely, beautifully, and pure. And then we interact with the misunderstanding. And so that's why this conversations that we're having here are so important to me, because if we could just remember that we matter and be there ready and willing for when our children come into the world, to meet them and remember them that they matter, no matter what the TV is saying, the radio is saying, or the people in the community are saying, we can interrupt that and expose them to some deep, meaningful truth. That you came here for a reason, and if you can find that and get lost in the love of it, your life and the life of everyone around you is going to get lifted up. So, anyways, that's what brought me to the what's so. Once I know that I'm talking to a beautiful person, anything that's not sweet is not truth. And therefore, it's working on them. It's like the fact that we can look at a mentally ill person now, and we don't judge them now. We judge the illness, right? Well, we don't even judge, but we're like, wow, that's the illness. We can separate it. Mm-hmm. It's not long ago that we weren't able to do that, when people were seeing mentally ill people and really judging them as synonymous.
Some people still do.
With that. Like, so that's what I'm speaking about. So when you could separate it, and I can look at the person sitting next to me and be like, this is a human being in an evolution process, coming home to themselves so they can re-love themselves and then send that love out into the world. Anything that's in between that, we can put that aside and look at it together and figure out what we want to do about it. And then we can assist each other in being the more and more of the beautiful people we were born to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you're talking about conditioning essentially.
Yeah.
Like, what was the conditioning that each of us received? Because we did, and it's so. I remember, I'm like, when we had kids, I was like, I feel like my job is just to get out of the way as much as possible, so that their beautiful selves can shine through as true and beautiful and free as possible. And I have just watched myself, and like, man, if it's like I know it, I can see where the conditioning is still happening because we're swimming in it, and we're human, and we're still working through our stuff. And I just know that with each generation, it's like we're healing more and more of it, so less and less is passed down, you know. But yeah, I think it's interesting when we look at the places where we're acting in a way that is not aligned with love, that is not aligned with connection, that is not aligned with any of that. Somewhere something got in there. And it's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking about it, and I want to invite everybody to think about what is the first time that you remember like saying something that was true for you and someone reacting either with a judgment or telling you not to say that, or it can be something so simple because as children we're so sensitive that small little comments that probably don't even mean anything to the adult you're talking to are huge for you as a child.
Or maybe it did mean something.
Or maybe
like
it did.
A lot of our parents were not doing the work.
Yeah.
The work wasn't on the menu like it is today, and it's becoming more in the what do you call that, like mainstream conversation, I feel. More commonplace for us to be able to have more authentic conversations. But if their parents told them to shut it down, and that's what they know is true, like they're airing your dirty laundry, then they're going to tell you to do that. It's often that the parents are the ones that become the offerers of the programming to the children.
Oh, it's so painful.
And to see it happen. However, like I was saying, remember, folks, not everyone wants to play the what's so game. And I invite you to be around people that do, that understand it. And then once again, like Betsy and I think it was a long time, Betsy, that like I was telling you, baby, Betsy, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We're looking at the problem together.
Yeah.
You watch people playing any sport. The moment a team turns on each other when they're losing, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much talent they have, how much practice they had.
Yeah.
If they turn on each other, they're done. It's donezo.
Yeah.
They need to be together, united, and even if you have to take a L in the moment, you take that L connected, get up in that locker room, look at what the hell happened, and then get back out there the next game and get that W or get closer to that W. They say that we bond so much deeper, not when we win, but when we stay together, no matter what happens. That's the person I want with me in this life, is the person that I know is going to stay with me no matter what the shadow throws our way.
Well, you know what's so interesting, though, and I think this is something that is up for discussion in the collective, too, is like we need the kind of culture more broadly where people can come and admit to mistakes and not fear punishment, but have enough of an open space to be like, I messed up here. I did something that was out of order, and I want to do better, and create a space for that. You know, like instead of something punitive, something that can create space for healing. And I think that's one of the things I've always appreciated about our relationship is I feel like we've always held that space with and for each other. And I just want to honor that because not every relationship is like that. But just in the collective human space, like, you know, even for you being able to come and be like, hey, here's what I did when I was younger, when I was, you know, deep in the misunderstanding of myself and all of that. And like to really offer repentance for that, to change your behavior, to ask forgiveness and to shift. Like that's how we make real change. And I guess I hope that, and I think that's another reason also why people don't name the what so. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to get punished for this, you know? And I think that that's a space we need to create, especially for children, to come and admit to saying, you know what, I did this thing. And for us to be like, okay, prefer you hadn't done it, but thank you for telling me, and how are we going to do this differently the next time? Like create space for growth and honesty and openness.
And consequences. Like, I feel like people kind of kind of shy away from negative consequences. I've learned to embrace them because I don't see right and wrong, blame and shame, like good or bad. I see the spectrum, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so the spectrum is you make an action and there's an effect to every, there's an impact.
Well, consequence doesn't always mean negative.
No, that's what I mean.
It just means what results from your actions.
So if you're being if you're being in the misunderstanding, you're being a shitty person, then you're going to have a shitty consequence.
Yeah.
And you and the people that you're interacting with are all going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And when you realize that you've been doing that, and that there's a higher road that actually makes you feel good, and makes everyone else around you feel good, then you get to claim that. And that's why I love it. Because the moment I'm like, man, I was not being a good human being.
Uh-huh.
This is the impact. This is how did it affect you? Let's deal with that consequence. Now watch me be a better human being.
Yeah.
And if I could have that negative impact, what positive impact can I have? And are you willing to be in that with me? Does that make sense? Am I saying that clearly?
Yeah, they call that natural consequences. And they talk about that a lot for children in terms of how they learn. Yeah. Like if you let a child experiment and explore, assuming they're not in like a life-threatening circumstance, but if they're playing with something a little edgy and they fall down and they get hurt or whatever, they learn, okay, don't do it that way because I'm going to get hurt, natural consequences.
I love it. And for you guys listening, when I say shitty person, I say it with absolutely no judgment.
Well, I don't know if you can call someone a shitty person.
I'm myself. Like, I can say, like, man, I was not...
Objectively, those actions were shitty.
Yeah, like, I don't, like...
Objectively shitty.
I'm a rare one.
Ooh, the sun just came out as I said that. The sun literally... I said objectively shitty, and the sun was like, oh.
But there's moments when you look back and you were like, that was not cool.
That was not the move.
That was not the move. I totally reacted. I totally came out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I totally came out of worry. I totally was protecting my ego. I totally diminished that person. Like when we can say it take the judgment away.
Yeah.
The thing about people is that people are so used to like beating up on themselves.
And each other.
But we never treat anyone else as bad as we treat ourselves. I want you to remember that, people. When you see somebody flipping out on somebody else, you got to understand that is not nearly as harsh as they're speaking to themselves.
That's like, what do you always tell me? If you squeeze a lemon, you're going to get lemon juice. So when people get squeezed, whatever's in them already is what comes out.
So they're living in lemon, in that tartness. And then it just, life happens.
You're seeing the overflow.
You're seeing the overflow. And then it brings compassion. It doesn't bring okay, and it doesn't mean you have to stay in the way of it, but it is just an understanding. And so one of the things that we've worked on is the self-talk. If you can come out of the self-talk and the bad and wrong talk and the blame and shame talk and the judgment on self-talk, and you can come into the power of you, you'll be able to say stuff to yourself without getting attached to it. Yeah. It's just what's so, It's just what's so. And then what's next?
Well, and I think that a minute ago you brought up a really key point around the what's so, which is that the judgment aspect is crucial, that it not be there. And this is
for you or the person listening to
you. And one of the things that we've been talking about that I realized in the recent past too is there is a way in which over the years I have listened to you or other people always through a lens of bad and wrong. Of like, no matter what you said, I heard it as you calling me bad and wrong. It was about me, and I was bad and wrong. But if I took that lens away and I just listened to literally what you were saying and hearing it from a place of love, it changed the whole conversation. So it can impede the ability to have progress or to create any kind of loving connection when we're listening through a lens of bad and wrong. And to go back to the beginning, we were talking about how we actually implement this in our life and our relationship is that sometimes if we're just in a rut, in a pattern, and we haven't been able to change it, we can feel something is up, we'll call a what's so conversation. Now, the baseline requirement for a what's so conversation is a judgment be removed. That both of us be able to say exactly what's so, exactly the truth in that moment, met with completely open hearts, minds, spirits, and ears. So that, because you have to, if you're going to start saying stuff that's really deep and truthful that can feel really vulnerable, you need to know it's not going to be met with judgment or you're not going to want to say it. And when we open that space up to just say anything to each other, actually, I think we used to call them what say anything conversations, and now they've become what so conversations. But just the ability to be totally open and honest, it's liberating. It frees up when you free the truth. It frees you to really see what's there, and then you get to deal with it. But you really taught me, it's like if you don't start with what's really there, you're never going to make progress because you're just talking over something, and you never get to the root of anything.
Yes, and I think say anything and what's so are a little separate because I would like to live in a what's so with you, a what's so world.
Yeah, where you all the time.
You just feel like you could just be in the say anything conversation when you have to say something that you're pretty sure is not going to land.
Not going to be received
Not going to receive well, but you want to be able to get back to love.
Yeah, right, fair.
And so that when you look at each other and you sit down and you just like, and you make sure that you remember that we love each other.
Yes, that's
and we want the best for each other.
That's right.
And sometimes we have thoughts that are not okay, and they're not us.
Me. I never do.
Well, sometimes I have thoughts that are not okay. And a lot of the thoughts are in me. And sometimes some of them start sticking with me because I resist them or I don't like them or they make me uncomfortable. Yeah. And I start spinning and then I'm like, okay, sister, like I got to bring you into my world because it's going to be showing up because it's messing with me, And I'd love my partner to walk with me in this part of the journey without spinning you out too. So that, anyways, power to just say what's so, people. I invite it into your life. I invite it in to see if you have people in your life currently that are willing to go there with you.
Yeah.
If you're in relationships right now and you're dancing around muck and on top of, things that aren't clean and you know it, I invite you to bring those uplift them to the truth of what they could be, you and another person, down for this life and for each other, in each other's camp, knowing that we are beautiful at heart and anything else was just a misunderstanding, the foreign installation working on and through us. And when we can call it out as that, we can get back to who we are and what we're up to.
And I want to also offer that I think that in the current way we've been conditioned and in this culture, I think that doing this is a muscle.
Yeah.
That needs to be practiced. And so I want to offer everyone a even deeper challenge if you're willing to take it, which is I invite you to pay attention to those moments when you're out in conversation or out in the world and you start feeling like someone asks you a question or you have a thought or something and you feel that like internal tension, like your stomach kind of grips or your throat kind of closes or your heart clenches a little bit and you feel like there's something that you like want to say but don't want to say because you're afraid of how it'll be received. I want to offer you a challenge to try saying that thing, and you might actually find that you're not met with as much judgment or criticism or whatever as you were afraid you would be. And the more that you realize that you're not going to be met with the kind of blowback that your mind tells you you're going to be met with, the easier it becomes to do that and to speak your truth. And so you can start in small ways and build up from there.
Yes, and please remember, warning label, the what so is a personal conversation. It's telling the truth on yourself, not telling the truth on somebody else.
That's right.
The truth is their truth, is their business. If you see something in another person, I like to say, may I speak into your life right now? And if that person says yes to you, then that is a deep honoring, and I invite you to speak with care, especially if you're going to point out something that they might not be seeing in themselves. But the what so is a what is about me muscle. This is what I've been doing that's not in alignment with the truth of my love and my power and my grace, and watch me start living into it. The best apology is changed behavior. I think that's our message for today with the what so, folks.
Challenge yourselves.
Yes, please do one what so this week.
One.
Set yourself free from the internal dialogue.
Liberate yourself.
Liberate from the mental dialogue of the Olympics going on within your mind and see the freedom on the outside of it. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Catch you next time.
All right, beautiful people. Thank you for listening. If you were moved by what you heard today, you know what to do. Like it, share it, spread the love around. Until next time,